Today is the first day of the trial against Jose Ruiz. He is accused of brutally beating and killing 5-year-old Mercedes Lozoya in February of 2022. News 4's Tawny Davis was in the courtroom as the trial began and has an update.
Picture a peaceful street in San Antonio, Texas, a neighborhood where families thrive, children laugh, and life feels simple. But behind one closed door, a deeply moving story was taking shape. This is the journey of Mercedes Lozoya, a little girl whose time with us was far too brief. What went wrong? And why does her story still resonate in our thoughts years later? Today, we're stepping into a puzzle that leaves us searching for answers. Answers about care, duty, and the safeguards meant to shield the youngest among us. Welcome to Unreal Minds, where we uncover stories that touch the heart, stories that push us to reflect deeply. Today we're exploring the Mercedes Lozoya case, a poignant moment from 2022 that rippled through San Antonio and far beyond. This isn't just about what took place, it's about why it matters. We'll touch on some weighty themes, so viewer discretion is advised. Rest assured, we're handling this with sensitivity, respect, and a commitment to the truth. Let's begin. Mercedes Lozoya was only 5 years old when her chapter closed in 2022. Living in San Antonio, Texas, she was looked after by her mother, Katrina Mendoza, and Mendoza's partner, Jose Ruiz. What unfolded was a series of events that led to her absence. After a detailed investigation, the legal results were firm. In 2024, Jose Ruiz was sentenced to life in prison, while Katrina Mendoza agreed to a 40-year plea deal. But this story stretches beyond the courtroom. It's a call to action about safeguarding children, about the oversights that let a little girl fall through the gaps. Stay with us as we reveal the key moments, offer fresh perspectives, and consider what this means moving forward. I'd love to hear your thoughts, so watch to the end and join me in the comments below. Mercedes Lozoya was a young soul growing up in San Antonio, Texas. Born in 2017, she was just 5 in 2022, embracing a life sprinkled with the innocent joys of youth. She lived in a calm corner on the south side of the city, sharing her days with her mother, Katrina Mendoza, and Mendoza's partner, Jose Ruiz. To those walking by, they seemed like any other family, part of the everyday rhythm of their community. Mercedes was a bright and inquisitive child, cherished for her gentle yet warm spirit. She adored the color purple and often dreamed aloud of becoming a teacher someday, inspired by the mentors she looked up to at school. She loved stories of magical journeys and distant lands, a window into her creative soul. Outside, she'd join a handful of neighborhood friends, always eager to share her toys or play along. Her smile lit up faces, and her boundless wonder promised a future full of possibilities. Still, home wasn't always a haven. The family faced struggles that sometimes dimmed Mercedes's lively glow. Over time, those nearest to her started to see shifts. She missed school more often, and her once constant giggles grew faint. Neighbors saw her outside less, and when they did, she seemed quieter, more reserved. Teachers noticed her empty desk piling up absences, observing that even when she was there, she wasn't the same spirited girl they remembered. Small clues suggested her world was changing, though the full picture stayed out of reach for those around her. Mercedes Lozoya was a dreamer, a child radiating light and hope, shaped by her family, friends, and the San Antonio community that encircled her. Her story paints a portrait of a little girl whose spirit glowed brightly even as clouds began to gather. Imagine a tranquil street in San Antonio, Texas, where kids pedal bikes and neighbors exchange waves. In early 2022, that calm masked a growing unease. 5-year-old Mercedes Lozoya once filled that scene with her giggles. But in the weeks before February, things changed. She stopped stepping outside. Her small shadow no longer danced across the yard. Neighbors took note, but didn't press. They assumed she was busy or feeling under the weather. Inside her home, though, the space felt smaller. The family, Mercedes, her mother Katrina Mendoza, and Mendoza's partner, Jose Ruiz, began to drift inward. What was stirring behind that door? Mercedes' world rested with two people. Her mother, Katrina Mendoza, had once been her anchor, but lately she seemed caught in her own troubles. Then there was Jose Ruiz, Mendoza's partner, who entered the picture months earlier. His presence shifted the air. Family later shared he carried a weight, quick to frustration, especially around Mercedes. To outsiders, they blended in as a typical household, but those closer saw fractures. Mendoza waved off visitors with reasons. Mercedes was resting or not up for company. Ruiz stayed distant, his shadow hovering. Those closest to her were expected to provide care, but failed in critical ways. Which was it? Signs lingered, subtle but telling. At school, Mercedes' seat stayed empty, more often. Teachers asked, but replies were hazy. When she appeared, her spark had faded. She was hushed, distant. A neighbor glimpsed her once, staring blankly from a window. Another caught raised voices late at night, but let it pass. Family reached out, only to be greeted with smiles and assurances all was well. If only they'd pressed further. Each chance slipped away, unseen. Then, something unexpected broke through. The hints were there, but no one connected them in time. By late February, Mercedes faded from view. Her world shrank to that house on the quiet street. Inside, strain simmered. Mendoza and Ruiz grew unsteady, clashing, closing off the world. On February 27th, a family friend stopped by, hoping to see Mercedes. The door opened just a sliver, enough to say she wasn't around. Something felt wrong, but they walked away. The next morning, that friend returned, a quiet worry pulling them back. They peered through a window and stopped cold. What they saw next changed it all. A frantic call went to authorities, urgent and pleading. But one piece didn't fit. How had it reached this point? On February 7th, 2022, a call reached San Antonio police. Someone reported a child in need in a calm neighborhood. When officers arrived, they found 5-year-old Mercedes Lozoya unresponsive. Her passing was tragic, and questions soon arose. The home didn't feel like a nurturing space for a little girl. Authorities acted fast, launching an investigation to seek the truth. But one question gnawed. Why hadn't anyone stepped in earlier? The next few days were charged. Investigators searched the house, uncovering signs suggested concerns within the home environment. Experts stepped in, studying Mercedes' condition for answers. Medical professionals presented their findings, indicating a history of concern. Each find built a timeline that stunned them. How had this stayed hidden? Family had voiced concerns. Authorities had past interactions with the family, but intervention fell short. Yet, here they were, assembling a heart-rending puzzle. The tangible clues were just the start. Then came the voices of those who knew Mercedes. Her 6-year-old sister, Jordan, spoke up. Her words were plain but piercing. Stories of difficulties she'd witnessed firsthand. Neighbors added their pieces. They'd seen Mercedes slipping from sight, rarely outside anymore. Teachers recalled her absences, her quiet ways. Each account wove a thread, crafting a tale of a child falling through the gaps. But why hadn't anyone moved? Then something surprising emerged. Investigators accessed Jose Ruiz's phone. Authorities' findings raised serious concerns about missed opportunities. Locked in that device were images and clips revealing a pattern of harsh treatment. These stayed private, but police called them clear evidence. The signs pointed directly at Ruiz and Katrina Mendoza, Mercedes' mother. It was a turning point, but the case wasn't closed. Sorting out the roles would take time and care. This wasn't a straightforward search. What stood out was the tangle of missed moments. Authorities had past interactions with the family, but intervention fell short. Family had pleaded for aid. So why was Mercedes still there? That question fueled the team's drive. They tracked a worsening spiral in the weeks before her absence. The system meant to shield her had faltered, and now they had to unravel why. It wasn't just about two people. It was about a larger flaw. By the end, the evidence was undeniable. A solid timeline, witness words, expert findings, and those striking digital traces all pointed to one reality. Mercedes had been let down, not just by Mendoza and Ruiz, but by the safety web that should have held her. Then came a moment that struck everyone silent. The understanding that this might have been prevented. As the investigation closed, the focus turned. Closure loomed, but the story wasn't finished. In March 2024, the courtroom buzzed with tension. Jose Ruiz faced trial for his part in the case of Mercedes Lozoya, a 5-year-old girl whose time ended too soon. The prosecution stood prepared. They brought a wealth of evidence, medical insights, witness accounts, and a timeline leading to one truth. Ruiz bore responsibility, but the defense spun another tale. They argued Ruiz wasn't alone in fault. The jury leaned in. What they didn't anticipate was how swiftly clarity would come. The prosecution built their case. Medical professionals presented their findings, indicating a history of concern. Witnesses, including Mercedes' older sister, shared what they'd seen. The prosecution's stance was firm. Ruiz's choices led to her absence. The defense pushed back. They turned to Katrina Mendoza, Mercedes' mother, claiming shared blame. They insisted Ruiz hadn't meant for this outcome, but their argument faltered. The evidence held strong. The jury's expressions showed it. Uncertainty was slipping away. Outside, San Antonio held its breath. This wasn't just a trial, it was a signal. News captured every beat, and the community united, calling for resolution. People who'd never known Mercedes felt tied to her story. Signs sprang up. Protect our kids. The case grew beyond one family. It embraced every child. But one question puzzled many. How had the system stumbled so deeply? That lingered, unanswered. After days of testimony, the jury deliberated and reached a decision, finding Ruiz responsible. The courtroom hushed as the judge spoke the verdict. Ruiz's path was set. Then came a moment that gripped everyone: the sentencing. Ruiz received a life sentence, bringing closure but not reversing the tragedy. Still, for many, it offered a step toward peace. Katrina Mendoza faced her moment next. She chose a plea deal. 40 years in confinement. No trial, just a quiet, close to her role in the events. But the story pressed on. Mercedes' case ignited shifts. Child protection groups faced scrutiny. New approaches were weighed. Awareness swelled. Her name became a beacon. We must improve. The legal chapter ended, but the mission to safeguard children was just starting. Even after the courtroom quieted, the Mercedes Lozoya case left lingering wonders. How could such a tragedy unfold? And what remains unseen beneath it all? In 2022, 5-year-old Mercedes Lozoya slipped away due to challenges from her mother, Katrina Mendoza, and Mendoza's partner, Jose Ruiz. Ruiz received a life sentence in 2024, while Mendoza took a 40-year plea. But this case continues to be discussed for its impact. Let's explore the mysteries that keep this alive in our minds. What made this case unique wasn't just the loss, it was the trust broken. Mercedes relied on those nearest, yet those closest to her were expected to provide care, but failed in critical ways. Then, something unexpected struck. The system built to guard her had flaws. Authorities had past interactions with the family, but intervention fell short, and family had sounded warnings. So why didn't help arrive? That void, that misstep, still aches, making this unforgettable. But one piece didn't add up. How did this stretch so long? People caught glimmers. Mercedes wasn't herself, her light dimming. Family checked in, neighbors pondered, teachers saw her absences grow. Yet the dots never aligned. If only they'd sensed the risk ahead. And here's a twist. Could others have known? The spotlight stayed on Mendoza and Ruiz, but whispers float. Did someone else see the signs and turn away? These questions weigh heavy, unresolved, like echoes in the silence. The community couldn't stay quiet. Frustration surged. How had Mercedes been overlooked so gravely? Many aimed blame at the system, seeking answers. Experts weighed in, their insights sharp. Child welfare voices noted a trend. Strained agencies, missed cues. Some urged better training, others keener watchfulness, everywhere. But then came a turn. A few argued fault wasn't so clear. They said those who falter can blend in, leaving all uncertain. The discussion flared, dividing views and stoking the flame. This case remains a reminder of systemic challenges. It reveals that keeping kids safe demands more than plans on pages. It's about us, neighbors, friends, teachers, noticing the silent hints. A child stepping back, a door closed too long. Mercedes' story urges us to move, not pause. And it's broader than that. The system needs strength, more hands, more support, more haste. Authorities' findings raise serious concerns about missed opportunities. That's the wisdom we take forward. This case continues to be discussed for its impact. Closure landed, but the why and how still resound. What fell through? What can we improve? Her story dares us to look harder at our neighborhoods, at the systems we lean on. Let us know your thoughts. What lessons can be learned from this case? How do we ensure no child slips by again? Let's discuss, because Mercedes' voice still counts. Mercedes Lozoya's story strikes deep. A little girl from San Antonio, Texas, full of brightness, left us in 2022 due to challenges from those she relied on most. Her mother, Katrina Mendoza, and Mendoza's partner, Jose Ruiz, faced their reckoning. Ruiz confined for life in 2024. Mendoza with a 40-year plea. But this isn't just one case closing. This story reminds us of the importance of child safety efforts. San Antonio won't let Mercedes fade. When the truth broke, it crashed like a wave. Families held their kids closer. Strangers gathered in quiet tribute. The outcry wasn't just sound, it lit a spark. People began asking, are our children secure? Child protection grew beyond rules. It became a purpose. Awareness rose, calls for change rang through the city. One girl's story roused a community. And it's a call we can't let dim. Now, we turn to you. Do you feel closure reached Mercedes? Was 40 years fair for Mendoza? Could more have saved her? What's unfolding in your own corner? Any echoes of this? Share your thoughts below. Let's talk. Your voice can fuel this cause. Together, we can turn pain into progress. If this story moved you, tap that like button. It helps others find it. Subscribe to join us for more journeys into cases that matter. Hit the bell to stay connected. We're not just sharing tales, we're growing a community that cares. Stay with us. Mercedes Lozoya's time was cut short, but her story endures. It's a stark reminder of what's at stake. Every child deserves safety, warmth, a future. This case remains a reminder of systemic challenges. It lives in the shifts we champion. Watch closer. Speak bolder. Thank you for being here. Let's honor her by always looking forward.